What's your nightmare HOA story? My at the time girlfriend, now wife, rented a townhouse with friends in a community that had an HOA. There was a parking reserved for guests of the tenants. Ironically, parking was always an issue for my wife and her roommates, but always simple for me. I just popped on the visitor's pass and was good to go in that lot. I spent the night probably once or twice a week, and one day I awoke to find my car missing. After some ace detective work, I found out that my 10-year-old at the time 5-speed manual transmission Honda had not been stolen, but just towed. When I reached out to the HOA, they told me that there was a provision in the bylaws that said a car could only be parked in a visitor spot for a maximum of 72 hours, and that a board member submitted my car to a list of cars to be towed due to abusing a visitor's pass. They argued the language in the bylaws was such that the total amount of time that a car may be parked in the visitor's lot was 72 hours, non-consecutively, i.e., if you park there once a week for 10 hours each week, on the 8th week we are in violation of the policy. This in opposition to the clear purpose of the provision, which is to prevent people from storing their cars in the lot. They summarily denied my request at the next HOA meeting to recover the $150 towing fee. Long story short, I sued them in small claims court and got back the towing fee plus court costs, plus they engaged a lawyer, so I feel good about wasting some of their retainer as well. They hired a lawyer to dispute a $150 fee. Geez, that lawyer deserves the money. That's such a waste of the lawyer's time. We live in a condo and began receiving $100 fines for not picking up dog poop. The area behind our building is a common area and lots of people walk their dogs around. I offered to submit DNA testing for my dogs and they ignored me and continued to send notices of fines. I began taking my phone with me on every walk and took photos and videos of me picking up poop with timestamp evidence. I sent a folder full of photos to the HOA with photographic evidence that I was picking up after my dogs. We continued to receive fines. I got a small trash can and kept on my patio and began saving my bags of dog poop for 2 weeks. I did tie the bags, but they were still obviously smelly as poop bags are very thin plastic. I then mailed a box of poop to the HOA office along with copies of time-stamped photos showing I had picked it up. I told them that I had better not ever receive another fine for dog poop because I had provided more than sufficient evidence that it wasn't us. Miraculously, the fines stopped and we haven't received any for over 2 years. They were probably trying to intimidate you into picking up all the dog poop in the area and avoid hiring someone else to do it. Knowing how shit most HOAs are, this is a pretty plausible scenario. Rented a house in a HOA. It wasn't too bad, just normal stuff, but every now and then some board members would tool around and hand out fines for dirty driveways and such. Wouldn't have cared if the president and a board member didn't live on the same street as me and their driveways were in massive disrepair. The board member's son did some work on his truck and there was a massive oil spill, partly covered with a red towel, that sat there for 8 months. While a few rust-colored streaks on our concrete was worthy of a fine. The funniest was when the HOA decided to install very aggressive speed bumps. The ones that were there previously were fine. Graded to not be too jarring, but required you slow down. The only accident that occurred while we were there was the spouse of a HOA board member driving drunk and plowing into a tree, but there were always notices and mailings for people to slow down as this is not a racetrack. I guess they felt adding in a couple of literal asphalt curbs in the middle of the street would show people who dared to drive over 10 miles per hour on the main road. The only way over these things without feeling like you were going to break something on your car was to ease up the first side, come to a complete stop, then slowly ease down the drop. Once for the front wheels, another for the rear. Some people had just taken to driving on the grass around them, so they put up concrete barriers there. After a few weeks, someone decided to pour diesel fuel on the speed bumps the day before the garbage trucks did their rounds. The speed bumps got completely destroyed. The HOA reinstalled the bumps and somehow made them even more aggressive. And a week later, Captain Diesel struck again. They yanked them out again and just paved over the holes. It was beautiful. They did end up installing speed bumps a few months later, but they went with the stock plastic ones that bolt to the street. which was much more preferable to the man-made cliffs of Dover that were there previously. I would sit in my yard with my dog between 4 and 6 p.m. every Friday for 3 months. Why? Because the HOA would measure my grass every ducking Friday. My lawn guy was the best, and I refused to switch. However, he could only come on Saturday. HOA let us choose which day we inspected. Everyone voted for Saturdays. They secretly vetoed it and came Fridays, but claimed it was Saturday they were coming. To prove this, I sat with my dog every Friday waiting for him. He would park, wait a while, then go to another street and measure there. My street was the only one who didn't receive fines for breaking the agreement. It became a party when everyone figured out what I was doing. People would cook out in the front and we would all go throw on coals and food as needed. I got reported for something or other after the 3-month marker, so I brought my supercut 3 months of time-stamped videos and submitted them to the HOA distribution list before I went to meet with them. There were 40 over 50 people there because we had organized a day to go and air grievances. It was maybe the best time I ever spent with any HOA. Imagine how pathetic your life has to be for you to go around measuring grass with a ruler so you can find people. Upscale beach neighborhood repeatedly refused my solar panel application, cited the location of them as being an eyesore top of the backside of the house, not visible from street, and fought me at 4 different meetings, delaying my installation. Ultimately cited the state law and they immediately backed down and amended their covenants. PS. A clothesline is a solar collection device and they cannot deny you use of that either. So if you want to play dirty, hang a bunch of beach towels in your yard. PS. A clothesline is a solar collection device and they cannot deny you use of that either. I wish I had known this when I lived in a trailer park a few years ago. I didn't have room for a washer and dryer, but no worries. They put a hookup for it in my bathroom. I could not find a stacked washer and dryer combo. I'm poor. That's why we lived in the park in the first place. So I found a washer for really cheap and put a clothesline in the yard. It saved me a lot of time and money using the laundry room. 1.25 for washer, 1.50 for dryer. I had 2 kids under 2 years old, and it was close to impossible for me to lug the laundry to the laundry room with those 2. For a week it worked great, and I could finally do laundry without asking my husband to do it after work. Then I get a letter saying the clothesline wasn't allowed because it was an eyesore and a hazard. No one should be in my yard anyway. Didn't stop my asshole neighbors for taking a shortcut through my tiny yard with their dog around my kids. I still had to take it down because of the fines, and I'm scared of confrontation and terrified of making landlords and neighbors mad. I've had landlords harass us and attack my husband in front of my daughter. I've had neighbors flip over stupid shit and had a gun pulled on me at 2 separate places because the neighbors were crazy. I lived in a neighborhood with a park in the center, located directly behind my back fence. The entire neighborhood was managed by the same HOA company, but the neighborhood was officially set up as 2 different HOA communities. Even though it was on the other side of my fence, the park was designated as part of the community I was not in. On multiple occasions, the irrigation system in the park broke and completely flooded my backyard. 3 or 4 times over a span of a few months, I woke up to literally 1.5 feet of water. Over time, my brick fire pit literally sank into the ground. An entire layer of brick water came into my kitchen on 2 of the occasions, and every time my home's foundation looked weaker and weaker after cleanup. I called to complain to the HOA each time. The flooding almost always happened on a weekend, and it wouldn't be until Monday that they came out, leaving my home flooded for a minimum of 2 days each time. After the 3rd or 4th complaint, I finally reported them to the BBB and the Water Authority, and I sent a video to the local news. The next business day, the head of the HOA company called me furious. Despite all the pictures and videos I'd sent, she said she was convinced I was making it all up. When I pressed her why she thought that, she specifically said it was because the park can't be flooding your house. It's not even part of the same HOA community you live in. Why can't the water just follow arbitrary rules and regulations? How inconsiderate. We've only been part of an HOA for the last few months, and it's already living up to every stereotype I ever had in my head. They held our once annual meeting with very little notice, and like 6 people showed up. They elected a new association and immediately decided to spend $700 on dog shit receptacles, even though like 4 people have dogs, and the whole neighborhood is one street. This sparked an incredible amount of drama. One guy on the HOA decided he was going to get super defensive when people started questioning this decision, and it quickly devolved into him just taunting people on Facebook because he was on the board and they weren't, and if they didn't like his authority, they should change the bylaws. Then someone left a bunch of dog shit in his driveway. Then he resigned from the HOA. No word on the dog shit receptacles. This has all happened in the past 3 days. That was some awesome revenge, though.